2 decades later, a journalist researching Diana's unsung connection stumbled upon a curious pattern: anonymous donations made to hospitals, orphanages, and women's shelters in her name. The only clue was a faded envelope sealed with wax, containing a photograph: Diana lighting a candle outside a children's hospital, the very one that had once ruined a man's life. On the back, in faint handwriting, it read, "For the woman who taught me that compassion is the truest form of justice." No one ever discovered who sent it. But some say that on certain evenings in Hyde Park, when the wind moves gently through the trees, a lone figure still walks the path where a princess once forgave a broken man, a reminder that kindness, even in the face of tragedy, can outlive everything, even death. Because love, real, human love, never needs a crown to be eternal. He was standing near the Ponte El Alma tunnel when the black Mercedes sped past, chased by a mob of flashes that looked like lightning in a storm. In that instant, Michael's instinct screamed. He followed on foot, running toward the tunnel, his heart pounding. And then, the sound. Metal against concrete. Shattering glass. Silence. By the time he reached the wreckage, police were already pushing people back. He saw the car, crushed like paper, and through the fractured window, the unmistakable face that had once forgiven him. Her hand lay still against the leather seat, a white rosary tangled in her fingers. He fell to his knees, the noise of sirens fading into nothing. In the weeks that followed, the world mourned her. But Michael disappeared. He moved to a small village in Wales, far from cameras, far from London. For months he said nothing to anyone. He stopped shaving, stopped sleeping, stopped believing. Until one rainy evening, a letter arrived at his door. No return address. Just his name, written in delicate handwriting he recognized instantly. Inside was a single page. Dear Michael. If you are reading this, I imagine the world has turned once more in cruel and unpredictable ways. But I wanted you to know, I saw you. Not just the man who followed, but the man who stayed. You reminded me that even those who've made mistakes can still protect, still love, still choose kindness. We can't control what others take from us, but we can decide what we give back. Thank you for watching over me. With affection. Diana. He read it 100 times before he cried. The letter, dated 2 weeks before Paris, had been left with her private secretary for posting. In that moment, something inside him broke open, not with pain, but with release. Years passed. Michael never returned to journalism. Instead, he began working with charities Diana had once supported, quietly, anonymously, using his savings to fund phototherapy programs for grieving children. When reporters asked about the mysterious benefactor who refused to be named, no one suspected the truth. In 2007, on the 10th anniversary of her death, he visited Althorpe, her resting place. He placed a single white rose by the lake and whispered, "You saved me." Then he turned and walked away, leaving behind the name and life that once defined him. He would never again take a photograph. But the last image burned forever in his memory wasn't one captured on film, it was Diana's smile that evening in Hyde Park, the sunset catching her hair like a halo, her voice saying, "Maybe you can give something back." And he did. "Are you following me?" she asked softly, not with fear, but with the weary patience of someone who had been asked for her soul too many times before. Michael froze. I'm not here to hurt you, ma'am," he stammered. "I just needed to make sure you're all right." Her expression didn't harden. It softened. "You've been watching me for months," she said quietly. "If you meant harm, you'd have done it by now. So what is it you really want?" The question undid him. Tears welled in his eyes before words could form. "Forgiveness," he whispered. That evening, instead of running, she invited him to walk with her through Hyde Park. The sunset painted the sky in soft bruises of orange and purple, and for the first time in years, Michael felt the air in his lungs lighten. He told her everything, the photograph, the boy's mother, his shame, his need to atone. Diana listened without judgment. Her empathy was quiet, but immense. "You know," she said after a long pause, "the world sees us both as symbols, you of intrusion, me of pain. But we're just people, Michael. Broken ones, trying to do our best." He looked at her, stunned. "You're nothing like me." She smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But I know what it's like to live under scrutiny, to be defined by what others take from you. You took something from me once. Now maybe you can give something back." That conversation marked the start of something neither of them understood, a strange, silent friendship. She didn't tell anyone about him. He never asked for photographs or favors. He became her invisible guardian, appearing at the edges of her world, sometimes carrying groceries she dropped, sometimes driving behind her convoy to ensure no one else followed too close. She never invited him into her inner circle, but she didn't need to. Their connection existed in the unspoken space between guilt and grace. As 1997 dawned, the tabloids turned vicious. Rumors about Diana's personal life filled every front page. But through it all, Michael stayed close, not as a stalker now, but as a silent protector. Once, after a particularly cruel article, she found him sitting outside St. James's Church, clutching a newspaper. "They'll never stop, will they?" she asked, sitting beside him. "No," he said softly. "But neither will you." That night, she smiled for the first time in weeks. By summer, Diana's life had begun to change. She found new love, new hope, and for the first time, spoke of leaving England behind for a quieter life. Michael knew it was time to disappear, his purpose was complete. But fate had other plans. On the night of August 30th, 1997, he was in Paris on assignment, freelancing for a small European agency. He hadn't known she would be there. Until he saw her. Diana's stalker, the man who knew too much. London, 1996. The city was a storm of whispers, and at the center of it all was a woman who had once been the world's most photographed face, yet now sought nothing more than invisibility. Princess Diana moved through the narrow streets of Kensington in a soft grey coat and dark sunglasses, her head bowed beneath the weight of both fame and loneliness. Cameras still chased her like shadows, but tonight, she wasn't being followed by paparazzi. Tonight, a different pair of eyes watched her, eyes that didn't belong to a journalist or a fan. They belonged to a man who had been watching her for months. His name was Michael Reeves. And he wasn't chasing a story. He was chasing a ghost. Michael had once been a photojournalist himself, one of those who had chased Diana through airports and alleys, hiding behind lampposts to capture the way her sorrow looked under flashbulbs. But something inside him had cracked after a single photograph, one he wished he had never taken. It was the photo of Diana alone on a bench outside a children's hospital, her face lit by the glow of a single candle she had brought for a sick boy who died that night. He had captured her pain without her permission. And in doing so, he had sold it to the world. The photo became famous, a global symbol of the sad princess. But for Michael, it became a wound. The boy's mother had seen that picture in a tabloid and wept, believing it mocked her son's memory. From that day on, Michael couldn't sleep. He quit photography, lost his marriage, and drifted into the kind of despair that only guilt can breed. And yet, he couldn't stop thinking about her, not as an idol, but as the only person whose sadness mirrored his own. So he began to follow her, not with a camera, but with a conscience. Every morning he'd watch her leave Kensington Palace for her charitable visits, AIDS hospices, landmine campaigns, shelters for battered women, and every evening he'd trail a few paces behind, making sure she returned safely. He told himself it was protection. Redemption, maybe. But in truth, he was a broken man trying to guard the one person who had made him believe humanity still existed. Diana didn't notice him at first. She was used to being followed, by lenses, by duty, by ghosts of promises that had long since died. But after weeks of seeing the same shadow hovering at a respectful distance, never intrusive, never aggressive, she began to feel something strange, curiosity. One afternoon, after visiting a hospice in Chelsea, she turned suddenly and caught him standing half-hidden behind a line of parked cars. Their eyes met for the first time. His were haunted, remorseful, and strangely tender. She didn't call security. Instead, she walked toward him.